many tens of thousands of blacks came into Ontario, like just speaking of Ontario alone, because I really have not made much of a study of other parts of it. But they crossed over where there was a border. But they thought that there was upwards of tens of thousands of them. They're the biggest, Chatham, where the Thames River, because there's the second the Fugitive Slave Act gets passed again in 1850 because the states' rights keep breaking down and make free states, and so the slaves take over Congress and pass it. So then people begin coming north in even greater numbers, even free blacks, and a place like Chatham became known as the Black Paris of Canada, because there's so many blacks living in Chatham on the Thames River that it just was a huge, huge area. So the numbers aren't really fully known, and because people left during the Civil War, a lot of them either to fight or after Reconstruction they went back. So it's not really that easy to get a clear number. Can everyone hear what I'm saying? No? Yes, no, maybe? Maybe we'll just use the mic this way.
Hi everyone, my name is Emily, and I just wanted to add, I wanted to thank you for your work, and I also wanted to add to the conversation. I know that there are some numbers around how many blacks came into Canada, but I'd like to also say that it was a context that was a lot more complex, because even though Governor Simcoe allowed for blacks to come into Canada and be able to find some freedom, there was still slavery going on. And because of the kind of hidden aspect of slavery in Great Britain, or under the British Empire, it wasn't really clear, where there was slavery, how it was happening, and it wasn't as obvious as in the US. And so a lot of blacks would come into Canada and they would be very afraid to even disclose that they were black or they were hide. So there may have been a lot more numbers, we just don't really know. Another thing I also wanted to say is that, and maybe I misunderstood, but I find that black historians haven't necessarily completely ignored the relationship between blacks and indigenous communities. I think it's mainly that because only in the last couple of decades there has been able to have considerable research by black thinkers especially, I think that I find that most of Canadian black history was actually written by white thinkers or white historians. And that actually, if you are in conversation with people, if you go to, I've traveled to different cities in Quebec and different places in Canada, and Indigenous people and blacks are actually very conscious of the long history of intermarriage and even the Underground Railroad. Like, there's a lot of stories that we know of. It's just that there's so little documentation because it has been hidden, or I've spoken to descendants of freedom seekers who didn't know their parents had fled or grandparents because they were so afraid. Nobody even talked about it. I've spoken to, I believe, the great-grandchild of Marianne Shad, and she told me that at 19 years old she found out who Marianne Shad was. So there's a lot more complexity because Canada wasn't as safe as we say it was. And so I think, it's really important to bring that complexity into the conversation. Thank you.
I just want to speak to that for a second. What I was quoting there was a paper, and certainly from I haven't found, I've done an awful lot of looking for anything that would, I would have had it. Gladly quoted anything that I found that seemed reasonable to quote. Part of what I'm talking about here is the Loyalist period, and that there was a time period that's been lost. I'm not saying that later on things to do, especially because there was an awful lot of. I think one of the problems that we have probably comes from TV movies, in which people want to be free, and so they know what freedom is, and they're going to go off and do it. But I think in 12 Years of a Slave, I think you get a much better idea of what people didn't know what freedom was, what the people who escaped, he knew what freedom was because he was born free. They didn't know what freedom was because they'd been slaves their whole lives and for generations. Freedom is, I like the term with A.S. Summerhill, where he's a British educator with a book called Freedom Not License. I think that people understood an awful lot about white license, but I don't think they understood that much about freedom, and I don't think many people really understood that much freedom, and I still don't think they did. But anyway, that's just to respond to that.
My name is Victoria Boucher. I'm a residential school survivor. Excuse me. And I'm often asked to speak about my experience in residential schools. But I don't take the tack of claiming to be a victim. I have taken the opportunity to understand my own history and what led to this residential school phenomenon. I'm also interested in land management, and I really appreciate your documentation of all the lands, and particularly in southern Ontario. And because I'm First Nation, I focus more on the First Nation lands, not particularly the other groups of people that came. But from your talk, I started to understand and glean an understanding of the Grand River and the peoples that are there and their history and why they're so adamant about standing firm on their boundaries. And when I make presentations on reconciliation, that's where I start from, understanding the Aboriginal point of view of land management and where that came from, and all the other understandings of what we think of land management. Not be simple, but we also had agreements with each other about where those boundaries were. And when people say we were not agricultural, of course we were agricultural. How did we survive on this land? And the explanation about terra nullius, about it's insulting to hear about human beings owning other human beings. And not only the Black people, but also the Aboriginal people. And it kind of made my heart sick when in the United States there was one group of Aboriginal people that started to kick off all the Black people from their reserve, and that people have been living there for generations. And it was only because of land. The land is getting very small and they're restricted to these boundaries that are made up by this, well, in Canada it's called Canada, but I don't know in the United States what it's called. But anyway, I want to thank you for all your research, and I hope this creeps into the academic world and that people could start understanding the real history of what went on pre-treaty times. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I come from a news channel background too, so I understand the letting go of the past is a very critical thing to do. But you also need to remember the past. You need to know. Like I believe it's, as a white person, I believe it's really important for Canadians to understand that there was a different relationship. There was something else went on, not with everybody. Yeah, and yes, there was slavery. It was designed. Simcoe designed the system he couldn't ban it entirely because the Crown already made an agreement with oil, so he did what he could. Now Simcoe was no good for democracy. Simcoe hated democracy. Simcoe, and yet the Black Loyalists always. They fought against the rebellion of 1837. You know, all the people that were helping them were the people that they were, you know, that they fought against. But they did not want to be American. They never wanted to be under American law ever again. So any sense that it might have gone Republican was another. It's like, no, you know, a lot of people think it's all liberals and lefties that think that, you know, that America's bad, but it was actually the loyalists. We were the first Tories who didn't like it. You know, they didn't never want to be, so they didn't even mind, you know, violating American law.
Yes, I don't need a microphone. Yeah, Mr. Prager, you spoke about First Nations people acted as guides and got American slaves through the later trade. How did they do that? Did they go between? Did they just meet them on the trails? Or?
I think originally it was just all random. Like I think just, I mean, there's the one account. There's really only one account that I've seen of that takes place on a trail, and there are a lot of slave narratives out there to look at. But a man named Jar Logan, who later became the Reverend Jermaine Wesley Logan, he'd been a slave, and he set out with a friend, and they got up into the mountains, and they had no idea where they were going. They just kept going and going and going and going and going. They would meet people, natives camped in the mountains, and they would either, you know, be fed, or else they would just come into the tent with them. You know, they had to get out of the cold or whatever, and they ended up being lost. Like they ended up missing. They were trying to get to Detroit, and they ended up going somewhere far away, and they finally ran into a mountain man, and of course the white mountain men were in the mountains not to talk to anybody. They didn't want to talk to anybody, but they said, well, you have to go back that way 200 miles and then come down. So it's, you know, all of it was pretty random at first. And then, like all things, it becomes more, I mean, it's easier for a dark-skinned person to travel with dark-skinned people, or with people that bounty hunters aren't going to go and say, all right, let's look around here. Well, go messing with Indians a lot of times, and those kind of conditions, particularly in high places.
So thank you very much, Jerry. As I shared earlier,